Hello, thanks so much for joining me today on the Leukopak Lady. In the last episode, I talked about ownership of CSM quality and how responsibility should be shared across developers, collection centers, processing labs, and regulators. But this raises another question. If starting material quality is so important, why don't we have a true Leukopak specification standard? Earlier in the season, I talked about why Leukopak specifications fail. Then I was talking about a technical problem. Specs are too broad, metrics don't capture biology, and biology itself is dynamic. But today I'm talking about a different problem. Not whether we can define better specifications, but why hasn't the industry aligned around a standard set of them? The problem here isn't a lack of knowledge. The industry already understands a lot about what matters: donors' health, diet, and lifestyle, immune cell composition, functional fitness, and response to processing and cryopreservation. Instead, the problem is alignment. Different groups in the ecosystem want different things. Developers want differentiation, control over their processes, transparent cost, and a competitive advantage. Collection centers want simplicity and flexibility, broad donor pools, and operational efficiency. Regulators want to see consistency, control over the entire therapeutic life cycle, and clear definitions of quality. However, these priorities don't align naturally, and without alignment, standards can't emerge. Standards that work for this industry require ownership. Remember, I discussed in the last episode, no single group owns CSM quality, responsibility is distributed, and accountability is unclear. Without ownership, no one is in a position to define what good actually means across the value chain. So why haven't regulators forced this issue yet? Regulators in this still young field have focused primarily on final product safety, manufacturing control, and consistency of the final therapy. But as systems become more complex, upstream variability becomes harder to ignore, and starting material becomes more relevant to regulatory decisions. So even though CSM standards don't exist today, they will not be optional in the future. So what does a real Leukopak standard look like? It's not a single fixed specification, it's a framework. Defined ranges of biological performance, functional metrics tied to manufacturing outcomes, and predictive markers that connect donor biology to process and therapeutic success. In other words, a way to translate biology into something measurable, comparable, and controllable. For this to happen, several things must change. Greater data sharing across programs must exist. Alignment on which biological metrics matter, collaboration between developers, collection centers, and regulators, and early integration of regulatory thinking into donor and starting material strategy. This industry does not lack knowledge, it lacks alignment. And until alignment exists, starting material will remain inconsistent, comparability will remain difficult, and scalability will remain uncertain. So ultimately, my point is not just about whether we can define standards, it's whether the system itself is ready to support them. On the next episode, I'll focus on what has to change for cell therapy to scale like biologics. See you then.